What if your entire life, is one long metamorphosis? Let's talk about being the student of life today, where we will explore what it means to embrace learning as a lifelong journey. I'm your host, and today we are diving deep into a fundamental question: what does it really mean to be a student of life? You know, there's this beautiful paradox in human existence. The moment we think we have figured everything out, life throws us a curveball. And maybe that's not a problem, right? Think about it this way: a caterpillar doesn't know it's going to become butterfly. It just follows an ancient biological program, dissolving itself completely in the chrysalis before emerging as something entirely new. Scientists call this process metamorphosis, but what if our entire lives are one long metamorphosis? Today, let us explore how neuroscience, philosophy, and the simple act of paying attention can transform the way we see learning, growth, and what it means to be truly alive. Let's start with something that would have blown the minds of scientists just 50 years ago. For most of human history, we believed that our brains were essentially fixed after childhood. You got your neurons, and that was it. Use them wisely because you weren't getting any more. Then came the neuroplasticity revolution. Dr. Norman Deutsch's research showed us that our brains are more like rivers than rocks. They are constantly carving new channels, changing course, adapting to the terrain of our experiences. Every time you learn something new, whether it's language, a skill, or even just a different way of thinking about an old problem, you are literally rewiring your brain. But here is where it gets philosophically deep and interesting. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, he said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." He meant that both the river and the man are constantly changing. Modern neuroscience proves he was more right than you could have imagined. You are not the same person who started listening to this podcast 5 minutes ago. New neural connections have formed, old ones have been strengthened or weakened. You are quite literally becoming something new with each moment of attention you pay to learning. This raises a profound question. If we are constantly changing, constantly becoming, then what does it mean to know ourselves? The Socratic injunction to know thyself becomes not a destination but a practice, an ongoing investigation into a moving target. Consider this: every 7 years, most of the cells in your body have been replaced. You are like the ship of Theseus. If every part gets replaced over time, are you still the same ship? Neuroscience suggests that the answer is both yes and no. Your patterns persist, but the substrate is constantly renewed. This is liberating news for anyone who's ever felt stuck. That voice in your head saying, "I'm just not good at math," or "I could never be creative." That's not the truth speaking. That's just old neural pathways that haven't been updated with new evidence. The brain's capacity for change doesn't diminish significantly with age either. London taxi drivers who must memorize the city's 25,000 streets actually grow larger posterior hippocampi, the brain region responsible for spatial navigation. This happens whether they start learning the streets at 20 or 50. What this means is that being a student of life isn't just a nice metaphor, it's a biological reality as well. Your brain is designed to keep learning, growing, and adapting until the day you die. There's a concept in Zen Buddhism called Shoshin, beginner's mind. Zen master Suzuki Roshi described it beautifully. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. This is not anti expertise. It is about maintaining what cognitive scientists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between different ways of thinking about a problem. There's a fascinating study that illustrates this. Researchers gave children and adults the same puzzle box to figure out. The box had multiple ways to open it, but only one necessary to get the toy inside. The children played with all the features, discovering multiple solutions. The adults quickly found one solution and stopped there. The children were demonstrating beginner's mind. They were not constrained by efficiency or assumptions about how things should work. They remained open to possibility. The French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty wrote about something he called pre-reflective awareness, the way we experience the world before our analytical mind steps in to categorize and judge. Think about the last time you saw a sunset that stopped you in your tracks. For a moment, you weren't thinking, that's a sunset caused by light scattering through atmospheric particles. You were just experiencing. That is beginner's mind. But there's a paradox. How do we maintain beginner's mind while accumulating knowledge and expertise? The answer lies in understanding the difference between two types of knowing. The Greeks had different words for these. Episteme was theoretical knowledge, knowing that Paris is the capital of France. Phronesis, on the other hand, was practical wisdom, knowing how to navigate a complex social situation with grace. Being a student of life means developing both kinds of knowledge while holding them lightly. Yes, learn facts and skills and theories, but do not let them harden into rigid beliefs that prevent you from seeing what's actually in front of you. Consider how Albert Einstein approached physics. He had deep technical knowledge, but he also maintained a sense of wonder that allowed him to ask questions others took for granted. What would it be to ride alongside a beam of light? This childlike curiosity, combined with sophisticated mathematical knowledge, led to the theory of relativity. The neuroscientist Judson Brewer's research on meditation shows that maintaining beginner's mind actually changes brain structure. Regular meditators show increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, a region associated with cognitive flexibility and the ability to notice when attention has wandered. This suggests that beginner's mind is not just a nice philosophical concept. It's a learnable skill that physically rewires your brain for greater adaptability and awareness. The practice is simple but not easy. Approach each experience, even familiar ones, as if encountering them for the first time. Your morning coffee, your commute, your partner's face. What do you notice when you drop your assumptions about what you already know? Let's talk about curiosity. Not just as an emotion, but as a biological drive as fundamental as hunger or thirst. Neuroscientist Jacques Panscape identified curiosity as one of 7 core emotional systems in mammalian brains. He called it the seeking system. When it's activated, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter associated with falling in love or achieving a goal. But you know what is beautiful? The dopamine is not released when you find the answer. It is released when you're searching for it. Curiosity literally feels good. Evolution wired us to enjoy the process of learning, not just the outcome. This explains why Wikipedia rabbit holes are so addictive. Each link promises to satisfy your curiosity, but actually generates more questions, triggering more dopamine release. You're not procrastinating. You're following an ancient biological program that kept your ancestors alive by motivating them to explore and understand their environment. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan understood this deeply. He said, "Science is a way of thinking much more than it is a body of knowledge." The scientific method is essentially institutionalized curiosity, a systematic way of asking, "What if I'm wrong?" and "What else might be true?" But you don't need a PhD to think scientifically. Every time you notice something unusual and wonder why it happens, you're doing science. Every time you test a different approach and observe the results, you are experimenting. Consider the simple act of really paying attention to how you feel after eating different foods, or how your mood changes with different amounts of sleep, or how your thoughts shift when you go for a walk. This is data. You're both the scientist and the subject in the greatest experiment of all, your own life. The philosopher John Dewey argued that all genuine learning comes from experience, but not all experience leads to learning. The difference is reflection. It's not enough to have experiences, you need to actively think about what they mean. This connects to what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about thinking. When you notice that you're making an assumption, or catch yourself being reactive instead of responsive, or realize you have learned something new, that is metacognition in action. Recent research by Dr. Diana Tamir at Princeton found that thinking about our own thoughts and experiences activates the same reward circuits as food and sex. We are literally wired to find self reflection pleasurable. But there's a shadow side to curiosity we need to acknowledge. In our information rich world, it's easy to become addicted to novelty for its own sake, constantly seeking new inputs without integrating them into wisdom. The difference between productive curiosity and mere distraction lies in intention and depth. Productive curiosity asks, "How does this connect to what I already know?" And "How might this change how I see the world?" Mere distraction just wants the next hit of novelty. Being a student of life means cultivating what we might call deep curiosity, the kind that leads to understanding rather than just information accumulation. Now, let us talk about something uncomfortable but essential: failure as teacher. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they are highlighted, celebrated even. The philosophy behind it is that breakage and repair are part of the object's history, not something to disguise. What if we applied this philosophy to our own lives? Cognitive scientist Daniel Kahneman's research shows that humans have a profound aversion to loss and failure. We will go to great lengths to avoid experiences that might prove we are wrong or inadequate. But this very aversion cuts us from some of life's most valuable lessons. Consider how children learn to walk. They don't study biomechanics or develop elaborate theories about balance. They just try, fall down, get up, try again. Each fall provides crucial data about gravity, momentum, and coordination. They are not failing to walk, they are gathering the information necessary to eventually succeed. Somewhere along the way, many of us lose this natural relationship with failure. We start to see it as a verdict on our worth rather than as information about our approach. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset shows that people who view abilities as learnable rather than fixed are more resilient in the face of setbacks. They ask, "What can I learn from this?" instead of, "Why am I so bad at this?" But there's a deeper philosophical point here. Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome had a practice called negative visualization, regularly imagining loss, failure, or death. This wasn't some morbid pessimism, it was preparation. By mentally rehearsing difficulties, they built psychological resilience and appreciation for what they had. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor philosopher, said to have written something on the lines of confine yourself to the present in his personal journal. He meant that most of our suffering comes from dwelling in the past failures or worrying about the future ones, rather than learning from what is actually happening right now. Modern neuroscience supports this ancient wisdom. Dr. Judson Brewer's research shows that when we are caught in what he calls the comparing mind, measuring our current performance against past successes or failures, we activate brain networks associated with anxiety and depression. But when we focus on the present moment's data without judgment, we activate networks associated with learning and growth. The same failure can be either a source of suffering or a source of wisdom, depending on how we relate to it. Here's a practical experiment. For the next week, whenever something doesn't go as planned, ask yourself 3 questions. What actually happened? Mind you, it should be facts, not interpretations. Second would be, what can this teach me? And then you can ask yourself, how might this redirect me toward something better? This is not positive thinking or denial. It's treating your life like the complex, ongoing experiment it actually is, where every result, including unexpected ones, provides valuable data. Entrepreneur Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, credits her success partly to her father's unusual dinner table question. Instead of asking, how was school today? He would ask, what did you fail at today? He was teaching her to see failure as a necessary part of growth, not something to avoid. What if we all adopted this perspective? What if instead of trying to minimize failure, we tried to maximize learning? As we wrap up, let's zoom out to the biggest picture of all, the recognition that everything is connected, and therefore everything is curriculum. The systems theorist Gregory Bateson defined information as a difference that makes a difference. Every interaction, every observation, every moment of attention has the potential to shift how you understand the world. Consider the mycorrhizal network, often called the Wood Wide Web, that connects forest trees underground. Through these fungal networks, trees share nutrients, communicate about threats, and support each other's growth. What looks like individual trees competing for sunlight is actually a collaborative ecosystem. Your life is like this forest. What seems like separate experiences, a difficult conversation at work, a beautiful sunset, a childhood memory that surfaces during meditation, are all part of one interconnected system of learning and growth. Buddhist concept of interbeing, popularized by teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, suggests that nothing exists in isolation. The paper you might be holding contains the tree, the rain that fed it, the logger who cut it, the mill worker who processed it. When you truly see a piece of paper, you see the entire universe. This isn't mythical thinking, it's systems thinking. Modern complexity science shows us that small changes in one part of system can create large changes elsewhere. The butterfly effect isn't just about weather, it's about how your smallest actions ripple out in ways you can't predict or control. What does this mean for being a student of life? It means that every person you encounter is a teacher, every difficulty is curriculum, every moment of beauty is a lesson in what is possible. The physicist Freeman Dyson popularly said, "The more I examine the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that universe, in some sense, must have known we were coming." Whether or not you believe in cosmic purpose, there is something profound about approaching your life as if it were designed to teach you exactly what you need to learn. Not what you want to learn necessarily, but what you need. This perspective transforms everything. Traffic jams become lessons in patience. Difficult people become teachers of boundary setting. Moments of joy become reminders of what you are working toward. The ancient Stoics had a phrase, amor fati, love of fate, not passive acceptance, but active embrace of whatever life presents as a raw material for growth. Your life is the most sophisticated, personalized curriculum ever designed. The only question is, are you showing up as a student? So, here we are, at the end of our exploration, which is really just the beginning. If there's one thing I hope you to take from today's conversation, it's this. You are both the student and the teacher, the scientist and the experiment, the artist and the canvas of your own life. Your brain is designed for lifelong learning. Your curiosity is a sacred drive. Your failures are data points. Your experiences are interconnected lessons in the grand curriculum of being human. The question is not whether you are learning. You are learning constantly, whether you realize it or not. The question is whether you are learning consciously, with intention, with the kind of engaged awareness that transforms information into wisdom. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you get to choose. Will you sleepwalk through another day of the same old patterns? Or will you show up as a student of life, curious about what new lessons await? The classroom is open, the teacher is ready, class is always in session. Thanks for learning with me today. Until next time, stay curious. You have been listening to Curiosity and Co podcast, a space where we slow down to explore the questions that shape our inner lives and collective realities. It's a place for thinkers, readers, and wanderers of the mind, those who find wonder in the ideas and meaning in complexity. Here, we reflect on philosophy, science, psychology, and the way we live and relate to the world, growing from both the timeless wisdom and modern insights. Tune in for the ideas, stay for the insight. Because at Curiosity & Co., curiosity isn't just a trait, it's a worldview.